Hey there, dear listener. Wherever you are, good morning or good afternoon or good evening, you are tuned in to Safari. This is a podcast which aims to explore deep life issues and addresses how each of us can become better, wiser, definitely walk, and live a fulfilling life. I am your host, Werimo Gitao. By listening to people's stories and really listening, utilizing reliable research and experts, I discuss our past, our present, which will help to inform our current, which is our present, our now, and definitely how we shape our future. So today I'm recording in my home studio. I am sipping a cup of hot water because it has been incredibly cold here in Nairobi. So if you feel some water guggling, please don't mind that. But I have some exciting news which is making me very happy. I have a new recording kit, a Sub-Zero podcast presenter pack. I am very stoked that I have this kit and it will help me make the show much more better and that you're able to have a much better experience while you're listening to it. But most importantly, that your life is transformed through what I say, through the guests I bring on board. Just a quick note to those who are tuning in to this show for the first time. This is episode part 1B of a 2-part series. So I want you to stop and go back and listen to part 1A of season 1, episode 1. It will all come together seamlessly if you do. Trust me. Rhodah Karaoke is the co-founder. I'll do that again.
I know.
Welcome back to Safari Podcast. Rhodah Karaoke is the co-founder of To Assist Kenya, a community-based organization. Very lovely to have you on Safari Podcast today.
Thank you so much.
So maybe tell us a little bit about yourself, and thank you for making the time to be with us.
Wow, thank you so much. So as you heard, my name is Rhodah Karaoke. I am the co-founder and lead psychologist at To Assist Kenya, where we just provide mental health services. I'm very passionate about mental health, and Werimo here can tell you how passionate I am about it. And I'm willing to go all the way from grassroots levels to corporate levels to make sure that everybody has access to mental health services.
Great. Thank you so much, Rhodah. And in this And I told you I had done a part 1 series where just a couple of months, and maybe you can point it out, you had a walk, you had a mental health awareness day walk. So in this part 2 series on trauma, mental health and healing, Rhodah will discuss what trauma is and how adverse childhood experiences manifests and the healing process, and how can our past, distress, pain and heart better inform our present and future. So Rhodah, you're a trained psychologist. You've talked very passionately about bridging the gap from grassroots to corporate when it comes to mental health support and well-being. Help me and of course help our listeners to better understand and comprehend what is trauma, what is mental health, what are adverse childhood experiences.
Thank you. I'll start from where you started, stating about when we had a mental health awareness walk. And it was something to just sensitize the community on the importance of mental health. Because so many people, especially those experiencing adverse childhood experiences, they think that they are the only people who experience these things. And sometimes they think it does not qualify to be a mental health issue. It just qualifies to be their own personal issue. And you find that maybe this person experienced a very adverse experience, for example, maybe sexual abuse, or this person experienced a very important early loss at a very young age. And you find that this person carries this along with them. They carry the bitterness. They feel that maybe people never helped them when they needed the help. So basically, trauma is an emotional response to a very distressing event or occurrence. For example, I'll use the same example I've given of sexual abuse. Someone was abused when they were children and then they never got over it, or they never spoke about, or maybe they were shut down and they were not able to, express themselves. And now coming onto their adulthood, they have these difficulties relating with people of the opposite gender. Every time maybe they're in an enclosed room with a person of the opposite gender, this person keeps on freaking out, thinking that, this person is about to abuse me in one way or another. Maybe they also lost someone who is very close. And every time they see someone who is getting sick, who is close to them, their mind always, takes them back to, I'm going to lose this person. This person is going to die and nobody is going to be there for me. And then, when you're experiencing trauma and at that time of the event, you feel that you really want people close to you, but then you find that people do not come so close to you because the way you are expressing it, you're expressing it in a way that you just want to be closed up, you just want to be alone. But deep down, you really want people to be there for you.
And how can then someone, because human beings, if someone puts me off because they are shutting themselves up by virtue of having a traumatic event in their life, I would feel shunned as an individual as well. So how can we best be able to detect when this person is shunning to the extent that they would want to be reached out, or it is our duty to reach out to them?
First of all, it will start with you having information on mental health, because sometimes you may presume that someone is shutting you out because they experienced an event, but maybe it was actually a different event, or maybe they already dealt with this, they just don't want to dwell on it, and they may feel that you keeping on asking them about the issue just takes them back. But the best thing you can do is, how frequent is this person shutting you out? And is it just a moment that you mention about maybe a certain event or a similar event to what you experienced that they shut you out? If it is that, and it occurs each and every time you bring up the topic, at least say 4 times, that is when you know this person has not healed from something that they experienced. And if they shut you out, it's okay, do not go forcing yourself onto them. Just let them have their space. And then when it's a good time, maybe you're hanging out with them, you can always maybe ask in a very subtle way, why did you shut me out from this? Or we can just be clever, or we can even go and consult with a mental health professional. How do I approach this person?
Yeah. No, those are very good insights, Rhodah, because I was just reading in terms of trauma, in terms of mental health issues, in terms of adverse childhood experiences while I was doing research for this show and a couple of other podcasts that I have listened to, that trauma exhibits itself in three ways, or any traumatic event. It could be acute, it could be chronic, or it could be very complex. Maybe as the psychologist, how do they, in these 3 pairs, manifest themselves, and how can you elaborate with particular examples so that I'm able to understand that this is what I'm experiencing, and my listener can also understand this is what I'm going through and this is the kind of support I need to get?
One, we need to recognize the fact that trauma manifests itself differently. And we may experience the same event, but I may respond differently, you may respond differently. Mine may be, for example, I'll just elaborate on the 3 types of trauma. We have the acute, the chronic, and the complex. For the acute, maybe someone lost someone, but this person, you were not so close to them, or maybe it was just that one person who died. For someone else, they had lost someone else, and then another close person died. So you find there's a difference. But the person who just lost one person, it was acute stress. You understand? But for someone who experiences chronic trauma, this is someone who have experienced the same trauma, but then in a prolonged way. Maybe it was repeated, or the occurrence was really, really prolonged. Let's take the case of sexual abuse or gender-based violence. This person is abused maybe just once. That is someone who's experiencing acute trauma. For someone who's experiencing a chronic trauma, for them it has been repeated. This person was abused 1, 2, 3, multiple times. But for someone who has experienced complex trauma, this person has experienced different events that were traumatic to them. Maybe they were in an accident, then maybe they were abused, maybe they lost someone who was close. So you find that for this person who is experiencing complex trauma, they have had so many issues in their life that have made them even shut the world out. And it's not just one item which was prolonged or just repeated.
And there's complex. So then I would take the acute, the chronic, the complex could be a multitude of traumatic events. So coupled with a death, you would then have sexual violence, and then a few weeks later you have your house burnt down, God forbid, and all this pressure and all this distress is mounted upon one individual, hence making it more complex. And then the kind of support that is required for each might then, you can agree with me that it could differ, correct?
Yeah.
In adverse childhood experiences, in addition to the 5 questions I covered on part 1A on this series, which I shared with our psychologist, Rhodah, there are 5 more you can reflect on to weigh the level of ACE, adverse childhood experiences, which will help us and you get the most appropriate help. And Rhodah, here are the questions I discovered during my research. Were your parents ever separated or divorced? Was mother or stepmother often or very often pushed, grabbed, slapped, or had something thrown at her? Or sometimes, often or very often kicked, beaten, hit with a fist, or hit with something hard? Or ever repeatedly hit over at least a few minutes, or threatened with a gun or knife? Did you live with anyone who was a problem drinker or alcoholic, or who used street drugs? Number 4, was a household member depressed or mentally ill, or a household member attempt suicide? And number 5, did a household member go to prison? And the questions were set forth during research a couple of years back, and they allude to the number, the higher the score on these 10 questions, the higher your chances are of having adverse childhood experiences and trauma even in adulthood, and especially if all those experiences happen to you from the age of 1 to 17 years. So I just wanted to gather your take, because sometimes we look at research and we allude to it as being done, it's from the West. They really don't contextualize us as Kenyans, us as Africans. What's your take on this when you look at those questions and how that perpetuates itself as trauma and impacting our mental wellness and mental health?
One thing that I've noted with the questions is that they are things that could happen to anyone. They're not things that could happen to someone because they were white, or because you are rich, or because you are educated or not educated. They are things that could happen to anyone, and so I believe that the research was right, because it went in a very broad way. For example, does any member of your household go to prison, or did you struggle with someone who was taking alcohol, or someone who was abusing you? And abuse is not just physical abuse, it could be emotional abuse. Someone keeps on abusing you each and every time. So I believe that the research is right, and that these things, they are things that anybody can experience it. Yeah.
And then how can we, because you have the score, and maybe we will come to that when you're looking at healing and coping mechanism. So looking at ACE, nature of the experiences vary greatly, and so might be the impact. So these experiences are experienced by children, as we've said, between the ages of 1 to 17 years, therefore impacting them in their adulthood. And when I read that, I was really shocked, because for me it was an eye-opener. As a parent to a teenager who is 19 years old right now, looking at how we parent and how we've been parented entirely can really have an impact on our adulthood as individuals. So therefore it can be deduced that ACE is therefore part of trauma. And of course, as Rhodah said, Rhodah is a psychologist to assist that we have acute, chronic or complex trauma. And trauma, adverse childhood experiences are often unleashed to developing minds, whereas general trauma can continue in adulthood and exhibit itself differently. And it applies also if you have adverse childhood experiences. So it's just knowing at particular ages you can go through particular traumatic distresses in life when you're a child and also while you're an adult. So the signs and symptoms of those suffering from impact of adverse childhood experiences, mental health, and trauma differs. So as a psychologist, Rhodah, what should a father, what should a mother, or should a daughter or a son, or you, relative, pay attention to? And I think this is something that I have passionately expressed to you over and over in our discussions as well. And then what practical steps should they take in the healing process or the journey of the healing? How does that look like?
I'll start by first defining what exactly a mental illness is. And it is a health condition that negatively affects the way you think, the way you feel, and the way you behave. And trauma is part of a mental illness. So the first thing is this person, the way they're thinking is in the negative side. And not just about the same event, but generally around life, this person's life is negative. So even talking about maybe their studies, maybe they're actually doing well, but they do not see it as any success. Maybe the way they are expressing their feelings, each and every time this person is sad, maybe this person is even crying, maybe the behaviors they're exhibiting, their behaviors of, they want to isolate themselves, they want to engage in drinking, they are, reckless drivers. Sometimes even the way the person dresses, colors speak a lot. This person just keeps on maybe dressing in dark colors. They don't want to see anything bright in their life. Maybe they want to stay in that room that is just dark. When you ask someone, why are you not lighting up your room? They're like, no, I just want to sleep. And you find that even the thing that they are interested in, maybe music, they're just listening to the sad version of music. And the best thing to do for this person is, one, be intentional to ask the question, are you okay? And sometimes we shy away from asking this question, but it is actually right to ask them, because for someone who is not okay, they'll be so glad that you asked them, how are you doing?
We've become so used to just saying, I'm fine.
I'm fine, yeah. But then you can ask someone, how are you doing? You're fine. And then you go ahead and you'll be like, really, I'm asking, how are you doing? I've noticed lately you've been very negative about life. Is everything okay? What have you been thinking about? And you may ask them in whichever way you know best to interact with this person. As you asked, you mentioned a mother, a father, a relative. That means this is someone who you know very well. How did they used to behave before? And you know the thing that they like, where maybe you can take them out somewhere where you know they can be able to open up to you. And give them space. Sometimes they may tell you, I'll tell you, but not right now. And when they say that, do not insist, because as Africans, sometimes we want our answers at that moment, but it is not correct. If someone tells you, give me space, you give them space. But then, after 2-3 days, if they haven't gotten back to you, you're like, oh, hi, by the way, I'm still waiting for your response. Are you okay? Can I make you something? You understand? And just being there for this person means so much. And sometimes they will shut you out, but they will be so glad deep inside that someone cares for me. And sometimes because people have experienced adverse childhood experience a lot of suicidal thoughts, you find that this person, even when maybe they want to actualize the suicidal thoughts, they'll always remember someone who really cared for them. And they may not even explain to you what happened to them, but they will come to you telling you, I feel like giving up and I need help. But when you try to take help to them, they still shut you out. But what you do, you become resilient enough. And just because they shut you out, you don't also go and shut yourself out from them. But you become creative around that and just do whatever you need to do to care for this person.
I really do like the point on resilience, because sometimes I tend to see us as human beings not always gullible, but giving up very easily, and especially to those ones we love and we should love and who should be in our care, in difficult situations that we ourselves don't actually comprehend. So that's why it's really important to have you as a psychologist, as someone from Kenya, someone from the continent in Africa, to really demystify what mental health is really all about.
And it's very important for people to realize that maybe you are a sibling to this person, maybe you are an older sibling to this person, and maybe you lost a parent, God forbid. But at this point, for you, the way you processed the loss, you're like, my brother, my sister should have gotten over it. But when you see this sister or brother is still holding on to that, to you, it's Africans, you're usually like, why are you still holding on to that? It's in the past, you should move on. the moment you utter such words, you take this person more down or downer than the way they were. You take them to a darker space. And the moment you say those words, no matter how much you want to show care or concern, this person will never come to you. And you may find these people shutting you out, and you may not understand why. But maybe it was just one time you mentioned a word that made this person know, oh, so this person doesn't care about me. So this is how this person perceives my experience.
So it's always really important, just emphasizing on your point, that we be very mindful on what we say and how we say it, because then that can have devastating damage on someone who's in distress.
Exactly.
And someone might be listening right now, Rhodah, thinking this manenos for traumas, GAs, adverse childhood experiences, mental health, healing, and psychology are not Kenyan, not African. It is a field that has generally been misunderstood. In your capacity as a psychologist to assist Kenya, how do you support and assist the teenagers, the youth and adults to understand mental health holistically? And how do you aid those who have experienced mental health issues and mental health challenges?
But to assist, there was the main thing that triggered us to start the organization, and it was the illiteracy around mental health issues. In Africa, people don't believe in mental health issues. If you have mental health issues, maybe you're bewitched, or maybe you are, you have some spirits that you need to be delivered from them. And so we realized the need for information. We always saw that knowledge is power. And the moment people are knowledgeable in mental health, you find that even as a psychologist, the people we'll be dealing with will be very few, because so many people were able to help them at the very first time. Because as stress occurs, you can tell that it is stress, very acute stress, and then now it accumulates all the way to depression. But for someone who is knowledgeable on mental health, they will notice when this person was involved in an accident, that means their mind was triggered in a certain way. So I need to pay attention to this person. You understand? So you find that this person, yes, was in an accident, but because we have a relative who is knowledgeable on mental health, this relative will sit them down and ask them, how are you processing all of this? And you find that this person will not go into PTSD, unlike someone who never had someone to ask them about how did you process this. You understand? For someone who is knowledgeable on mental health, when they see a friend who have lost maybe a parent or someone who was so close, this person will not just assume that this person is okay. They may go to their place, maybe to try and help them with some things, because they understand the process of mourning. You understand? Yes. And so you find that to assist, we train people, and other than just training to encourage the preventative approaches on mental health, we also provide things like counseling and also provide psychosocial support. And psychosocial support mainly is with organizations who are dealing with vulnerable people, and this is where we go and we get to sit down first with the caregivers, train them on mental health, then now with the people they are serving, and we help them in groups because most of them have experienced the same thing. So we sit them down in a group therapy and let them air out and speak out every bitterness they're feeling, the pain they're feeling, and we let them, air it all out. And at the end, we help them. We also provide individual counseling in that psychosocial support program.
And I was very happy to see that, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic, that you offer online counseling services, and then for people who needed that kind of emotional and psychosocial support. And also speaking about bewitched, it kind of just, I remembered I was in Sierra Leone in a district called Goramamende and Wando a couple of years back, actually in 2019, where the organization I was working with was running a mental health clinic, and I encountered one lady. If you go on Google and Google Mary and Chain, you will find her story, because it was such a terrific story of her healing process, of her getting back and integrating into the society, because she had gotten the attention and appropriate support and help she needed from her community, and also from the medical practitioners, from a mental health expert. And this really touched me because she was able to become a mother again. And the fact that she had been chained on a tree, that is why the story is called Mary Unchained, because her parents and her family and the community didn't know how to deal with her. So I think this is a case in point where mental health challenges, mental health issues, mental health support, mental health discussions, uncomfortable as they may be at times, are very keen in our day-to-day lives. And when I was speaking to a couple of people, I discovered there's a free mental health clinic at the Kenyatta National Hospital. It's one of the biggest referral hospital here in Kenya, run and managed by the government. And this is a really commendable step for the government. You've spoken of what To Assist does. What more do you think the government needs to do in terms of addressing mental health issues, from trauma to adverse childhood experiences?
I think the government can support organizations like us, or even them themselves, having people who go into the community to educate people on mental health. Because unless people are educated on mental health, they will continue to shut themselves. They will continue to think there is no help that is availed. And for example, in Kenyatta National Hospital, as you say, yes, there is the youth center where they provide free counseling services, psychiatric and counseling services from the ages of 14 years old and 25 years old. So if you are between that age bracket, you can always go and receive free counseling and psychiatric services from Kenyatta National Hospital. That's a very important initiative the government took, because if you check at the gap, or rather the statistics on mental health, you find that young people are leading on it, and you find that suicide is the second leading cause of death among people of 15 to 29 years old. And nowadays it's even going all the way up to 40 years. And you even find people who are older, people who are 50s, 60s, having suicide thoughts, and people who are even committing suicide. So I believe the government can be very active on this, and they can educate people on mental health. I believe there are programs that they are initiating or have started initiating, and because of the mental health bill that was signed, I believe that we will have even availability of the counselors in even dispensaries. Everywhere you go, you find that in every hospital at least we have a mental health department, and I believe that will go such a long way. Yeah, because mental health services, you find one, availability is not there, and then even if they are available, they are not accessible. So you find that if only mental health services are available in level 5 hospitals, how many people are accessing level 5 hospitals? And if they are there, how many counselors are there? Understand?
Yeah. So that's an advocacy point right there in terms of ensuring accessibility of mental health services in all levels of healthcare provision in the country. So dispensary, level 1, level 2, level 3, all the way to the level 5 hospitals like Kenyatta National Hospital. So speaking of getting help, Rhodah, in helping, what does healing from mental health, from trauma, from adverse childhood experiences look like? What progress do you see, and how can we cope as individuals inflicted with these illnesses and as caregivers?
The first progress you'll notice is a change in the way they think, in the way they behave, and in the way they feel. This person was portraying negative thoughts. Now they're portraying more positive thoughts. This person is portraying negative emotions. They start portraying some happy emotions, or rather positive emotions. They used to behave in a very negative way. But now they get to a place where their eating habits are okay, their sleeping habits are okay. Maybe they're not indulging in alcohol or other drugs as they used to. So first you'll notice the behavioral aspects, and also when this person speaks about their life, this person is maybe speaking positively about their life. They are speaking of hope, because one of the main issues that is brought to mental illnesses is hopelessness. But the moment you start hearing someone speaking of hope, you know that there is light at the end of the tunnel. And as caregivers, those are the first things to look out for. And when you notice that, it is not your work to nurture that. When this person speaks of hope, maybe they just know that they are hopeful of tomorrow, but they don't know how. But now it is your work to nail that hope. It is now for you to tell them, maybe
to water it.
Yeah, you start watering, and then you tell them that, maybe I can pay for your school, or maybe I have a job referral that maybe you can try applying for. Start showing them realistic hope. Because I always tell people, because sometimes when they're talking to people who are experiencing mental issues, they start giving them a realistic hope. But now when this person is already now on the upside turn, you need to show them more realistic hope. And you start sitting down with them and telling them these are the steps. And then acknowledging to them, telling them it's not going to be easy, but I'll be here to journey with you. And you can even give them examples of maybe what you experienced or someone else experienced and they were able to overcome. Because you do not want to give them false hopes, telling them that you will get a job tomorrow or everything is going to be sorted by tomorrow. But we can tell them that tomorrow, even if the job may not be there, at least now you have your peace. At least right now you can take care of your own body. You understand? Yeah, so let us try and do our very best to communicate realistic hope to people experiencing mental health challenges.
And maybe I wanted to touch on this because you just nailed it. Hope is very important. It's what brings you out of your bed in the morning because you're seeing something that is better for tomorrow and the day after. But rethinking about our parenting. I am a parent, and also so that we are able to not inflict adverse childhood experiences, but then also as adults, you are an adult, I'm an adult, also to reflect introspectively on our adverse childhood experiences and how to cope with them. What would you say about parenting and showing compassion? Because both can be time consuming, both can be costly, and both can be impacted and very much heavily weighed down by global events.
I believe in intentionality, and even when it comes to dealing with mental health issues, it's not something that will come randomly. The same way even taking care of your own mental health as a parent, it needs to be a very intentional thing. It should not just come automatically. Right now we are dealing with so many things, and now with internet and everything, maybe someone is listening to us from Uganda, from even outside Africa. So you find that nowadays we have access to so much information, and you have to deliberately, filter out the information. And same case with your parents. Whenever it comes to nurturing your child, you need to be very intentional. Create time for your child. Be there for them when they need you. When they start talking about something that maybe you think is very stupid, you need to, go down to their level, and you need to be very intentional.
Same way as with compassion, right? Yes. You need to make the effort. You need to get out of your house and go to that neighbor of yours. Get out of your house and travel to Ushago or rural homes. We call them Ushago here in Kenya, and go and visit them and seek out and look at how your senior parents and your senior aunts and your senior uncles are doing. Of course, bearing in mind that you cannot do everything. Also, don't burden yourself too much with that. But as Rhodah, and of course, we are listening to trauma, mental health, and healing. As Rhodah has said, it is possible to receive and give support. If you would wish to speak to a trained health expert, if you would wish to speak to a trained mental health expert, do reach out to assist on Rhodah, the number
0770 320 772. You can read it again, 0770 320 772, or you can email us at toassistkenya@yahoo.com, or follow us on our social media pages of Facebook, To Assist Kenya, Instagram, toassist_Kenya, and on Twitter, To Assist Kenya. If you give us a DM, we'll definitely come back to you.
Great, that's To Assist. So To Assist, if pronounced TWRR, those ones who are doing CBC, TWAASSIST, Kenya, the country, @yahoo.com. So before I pass it on to Rhodah for her parting her parking and parting remarks. I would also, Rhodah, maybe you can share with you before your parting remarks, as a psychologist, as someone who is able to engage other people, to give them hope, to give them support, to provide for them medical care, to provide them the necessary healing journey they require. So who steps in on your behalf when you're distressed, when you have traumatic events, how do you get support as a psychologist?
During our training as a psychologist, every psychologist has a supervising psychologist. No one is operating on their own, because you find that as mental health professionals, we are actually at a bigger space to experience trauma, what we call secondary trauma, where you find that someone shares a traumatic event with you. So for them, they're good because they've let it out, but then they've just aired it to you. You get the same case for someone who's experiencing an issue, then they tell their parent. So you just transferred your trauma, and a psychologist will experience that a lot, where you find that you're taking every person's package. And there's something that we call derolling, and derolling is an art that is used by actors, where after acting they have to, go back to now their real life. And even a psychologist, that's what we do. After maybe having a session with someone, after that now you go through the process of derolling, and you leave work at work. And me as Rhodah, I go my own ways, and once in a while I check in also with my counsellor to get to discuss what have I been doing, which was the hardest case, how do you cope with it. It's not a place of judgment or discipline when you're going to your supervising counsellor, but a place to just go and vent out, because you are also a human being. Yes.
As we wind up on the topic of trauma, mental health, and healing, what would you like our listeners to know? What would you want them to hear as your parting remarks?
Your mental health is as important as your physical health. The same way when you have a headache, you'll not go to work. Same way when you're experiencing an emotional issue, you do not have to go to work. And it is my prayer that we will get to a place where we as individuals can actually verbalize the fact that I'm not okay, the fact that I'm going through a difficult moment right now and I need some space. And also even for employers and bosses, as people call them, or managers, to get to a place where they appreciate when someone says, I cannot come to work today because I just lost someone who's close, so I need at least a week to just know the person. And I pray that we get to that place where they will not diminish this person because of saying that, but they will actually show them support, and maybe even add them something, because we know if this person comes back to work the way they are damaged goods at that point. And if they can't, they just transfer what they're feeling to your work. So basically, there's no productivity there. So let us normalize sharing. Let us normalize therapy. Normalize saying I'm not okay. And let us normalize even our own minds to hear that. Because we're in an age where right now so many people will tell you I'm not okay. And so you need to have trained your mind to be hearing this quite often, so that you're also not, sort of getting secondary trauma. When someone says, these are not okay, this one is not okay, instead of you helping them, you start going to a place where like, oh, I think I'm also not okay. But to be resilient enough to be able to take in people's problems and be your brother's keeper. Not everyone has to go to a counselor. Not everyone has to go and spend their finances on therapy. If you are caring enough, if you cared enough to listen, and to listen objectively, so many people will not have to go to mental health experts.
That's Safari Show Part 2 or Part 1B on trauma, mental health, and healing. Take care of yourselves and your well-being.
And go educate yourself on mental health.
Absolutely. See you next month. Bye for now.
Goodbye. Have a nice time.